Family and fellow soldiers, I'm the professor, and this is the moment of truth. Mark Ponder was at the January 6th insurrection. He was charged with assaulting and resisting or impeding police officers using a dangerous weapon. Apparently, he had a stick or some sort of staff, and he was swinging it at someone. As it turned out, one of the people that he was accused of attacking was Aquilino Gonell. You'll recall he's the immigrant Capitol Hill police officer who has been seen on white cable news a lot and even testified to the January 6th committee. Ponder was accused of having struck Gonell's riot shield with the stick that he was carrying, and so he has to do 5 years for that. Riot shields are very expensive. The white media has been trumpeting this particular sentence because they like the optics. 63 months, that's what Mr. Ponder has gotten. That's more time than Jacob Chansley, the so-called QAnon shaman, got, and that clown not only overran Capitol Hill police, he also occupied the Senate chamber and posted a threatening note. Hey, but as long as he doesn't damage any riot shields, it's all good, right? Gonell will never be back in uniform, but the white media buries the fact that he sustained the most serious injuries after the alleged incident with Mr. Ponder, not during it. So Ponder's not the one responsible for Gonell's career-ending injuries. By the way, I'm not sticking up for this Ponder guy, these black conservatives who run around saying, "This is why we should all vote Republicans." This is the mentality at work. Like Herman Cain, these black conservatives are brain-dead zombies who will go overboard trying to prove to everyone, on the white right that is, how loyal they are. They're going to do the most. And when the consequences inevitably come down, like it did for this Ponder guy and like it did for Herman Cain, these black conservatives are the ones who catch the worst of it. And they do so alone, and they deserve what they get because stupidity is its own punishment. But here's something the white media hasn't been so keen on telling you. Did you know that former Officer Gonell says that he forgives Mark Ponder for what happened that day? That's right. Officer Gonell said that he forgave the man who allegedly attacked him. But the white media doesn't report that, and neither do prosecutors nor the judge. None of them have acknowledged this fact. You haven't seen any headlines saying that. No constant video loop of Officer Gonell saying that he forgives Ponder. Nothing at all. The white media and the white authorities, they've memory holed it. He said it, but they're going to treat it like it didn't happen. Because when a black person has been harmed by some white supremacist, they're supposed to forgive. On the other hand, when it's the other way around, when the accusation is that a black person did something to a non-black person, well, forgiveness doesn't fit the white media or judicial narrative. Now, the judge in this case said that she had wanted to give Mark Ponder an even longer sentence than she did, but she said she was bound by a sentence that was given to another January 6th defendant. You see, the judge in the Ponder trial had also heard the case of another January 6th defendant, this one a white man named Robert Palmer of Tampa, Florida. Palmer had stormed the Capitol. He had attacked police with a fire extinguisher. He had a sign that said Biden was a pedophile. And he's also got a criminal record. And yet, for all that, the judge in that case felt that he only deserved 63 months. And that was too light, by the way, considering what he had done. But that's why Ponder got the same sentence. And as we've seen with Me Too and other white media narratives, if a white offender is in the news or given a particular sentence, the white media and the authorities immediately start looking around for a black person who they can point to and say, well, this black guy over here, he's just as bad. See, he got the same thing. They're never just going to allow for some white person accused of a crime to be seen in isolation. They got to make sure that there's at least one black person's picture right beside them. That way they can go ahead and pivot to focus solely on the black one. Now, here's where things get interesting. Robert Palmer pleaded guilty to one count of assaulting, resisting, or impeding police officers using a dangerous weapon, the exact same charges that Mark Ponder was hit with. And both Palmer and Ponder had their cases tried by the exact same judge, Tanya Chutkan. She was the one who decided that Palmer should get 63 months, and for the sake of not trying to seem as if she was somehow dealing from the bottom of the deck, she decided, well, I'll go ahead and say that Mark Ponder should get the same, more or less, though I'm going to make sure to say he should get a lot more. And if she admits that this Ponder guy should have gotten more time for the exact same charges that Palmer was hit with, then of course, isn't that an admission on her part that she gave Palmer way too lenient a sentence? Notice how that's not the narrative. The narrative isn't that she was way too lenient with Palmer. It's that she could have been harsher and should have been harsher with this Ponder guy. And by the way, this might be a good time to give you a little bit of background on Judge Tanya Chutkan, because I know the white media hasn't told you anything about her. First of all, as the name would imply, Chutkan, she is not a foundational black American. She's an immigrant. Black and Asian to be specific, and she's from Jamaica, where she grew up comfortably. That's interesting because most Jamaicans, the black ones at least, don't live comfortably. But people like Chutkan did, and so did Kamala Harris, who also traces her lineage back to Jamaica and also happens to be of, as she says, black and Asian descent. Chutkan was appointed to the bench by Barack Obama, another immigrant, so this is what she's done with her position. She makes it very clear that if she's got a black defendant and a white defendant accused of the exact same thing, well, with the white defendant, she's just going to go ahead and give a sentence, but with the black one, she's going to stand up and make it clear, I wish I could give you more time. Up until this last week, Palmer was the longest sentenced of the January 6 rioters, but the white media didn't give Palmer that much exposure for this distinction. Now they can show Ponder's picture full time. Now, of course, what the white supremacist trolls and the empty-headed nitwits in the comments will try to say is,
well, buddy, he did attack a police officer, buddy. He needs to do some time, buddy. There's nothing strange about this, buddy. He attacked a police officer, buddy. So, of course, he got hit with a heavy sentence, buddy. That's the law, buddy. There's no racism here, buddy. There's no racial distinction here, buddy.
And I sincerely hope that the lead paint slurping idiots who say that kind of stuff keep that same energy. Because just last Wednesday, another Capitol insurrectionist was allowed to take a plea deal, and it was a real slap on the wrist compared to what he did, and it demonstrates that attacking police is not what these sentences are based on. Everyone by now is familiar with the dead Capitol Hill police officer Brian Sicknick. He was one of the Capitol Hill police who fought with the insurrectionists on that day. He was bear sprayed during the attack as he engaged in hand-to-hand combat with the attackers. He didn't die during the siege, but rather the very next day from 2 strokes that were the result of the extreme stress that he had endured the day before. This was a cop who died as a result of the Capitol insurrection. He is by far the most well-known of any of the Capitol Hill police. You probably didn't know that they actually arrested 2 of the individuals who had attacked Sicknick, and you can be forgiven for that. The white media didn't make much of a big deal about it. One of them is George Tanios of Morgantown, West Virginia. Tanios was initially charged with felonies, including assaulting police and conspiring to injure police. But as we all know, genetic immunity is the law of the land, so Tanios was allowed to have a sweetheart plea deal instead. Instead of felonies, he got 2 misdemeanors: entering restricted grounds and disorderly conduct, basically the federal equivalent of trespassing. At worst, all he faces now is a measly 6 months in jail and a $20,000 fine. This man was instrumental in the death of a Capitol Hill police officer, and prosecutors offered this guy 2 misdemeanors. That's a far cry from the felonies that he was hit with initially, especially considering that this guy was involved in actions that led to a dead cop, arguably the most well-known of the Capitol Hill police from January 6. You inbreds who were crowing about Mark Ponder just a moment ago, please make sure to speak up now and tell us how this is all about attacking police. And what about Tanios' accomplice, the other man who attacked Officer Sicknick, Julian Catter? Prosecutors are also working on giving him what amounts to a slap on the wrist, too. He's being offered the chance to plead to 2 counts of assaulting a federal law enforcement officer with a deadly weapon. As the white media reports it, Catter will consider the offer and make a decision by August 24th, according to his lawyers. He will consider the Fed's offer? Like he's the one who has to decide whether or not their offer is satisfactory to him or not. But of course, that's exactly what this is about. We see it with police who attack black people. We see it with the Brock Turners and Drew Clintons and other people with genetic immunity from law. So what we're seeing is that this is not a judicial exercise at all. It is indeed just another racial exercise. Can the system of white supremacy maintain genetic immunity from law even in the face of massive outcry for punishment from within the dominant society itself? It's quite the balancing act, isn't it? To have to tell the beneficiaries of racial privilege that you can't punish the ones who attack them and threaten their way of life because of, well, racial privilege. The only thing more perverse than the Capitol rioters are the people in the white media and the government who are protecting them. But the dominant society has no one to blame but themselves. The same racial privilege that allows them to skirt the law doesn't stop at traffic tickets and low-level drug offenses. It's the same genetic immunity from law that allows rapists and murderers to commit crimes with impunity, or to even storm the Capitol. They had a choice to live under a system of justice or under a system of racial privilege. They chose racial privilege and must now live with the results. Or die with them, as the case may be. Good day, and be one. I'd like to take a moment to mention some of our contributors. Isaac, Reasonable Dude, Roxanne Allen, Mark Anderson, and Vassal McKenzie. Salute to them and thank you to everyone for listening, liking, and sharing this message. Black empowerment only exists because of you.